PGA Tour bombshell. Phil Mickelson's own children turn on him in court to protect the family fortune. This isn't tabloid gossip. It is a full-blown family civil war. 3 kids against their father. The dynasty is fracturing, and Phil is standing alone in the crossfire. And honestly, the pure, unadulterated audacity makes my blood run cold. Regular families are struggling to pay for college or a first home, yet these 3 heirs are dragging their 55-year-old father, a 6-time major champion, through the mud because they think he's a financial liability. It is a gut-wrenching spectacle, proving that when money hits 9 figures, loyalty can become negotiable. They aren't just suing him, they are publicly branding him a threat to everything he built. But look past the surface-level disrespect. These 3 kids aren't just vengeful, they are executing a legal lockdown. They realize that outside liabilities, gambling debts, and massive legal threats could become a ticking time bomb for the family empire. They are racing to freeze Phil out of his own trust before the sharks circling him can take a bite. Let me show you the court filings, the hidden reason behind this war, and how far these children are willing to go. Personally, I think these kids are playing hardball to save Phil from his own worst instincts. Do you agree? Or is this pure greed dressed up as protection? Drop it below. And if family drama colliding with high-stakes golf is what you're here for, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. To understand why anyone would take their own father to court, you first have to understand where Phil Mickelson stands right now. Instead, Phil Mickelson has played exactly 1 tournament this year. 1. The LIV golf event in South Africa back in March. Since then, he has been completely absent. He skipped the Masters. He skipped the PGA Championship. He skipped the US Open. He will skip the Open Championship too. For a player who built his identity around competing and chasing history, this is not normal behavior. His team put out a statement earlier this year. They called it a private family health matter. They said Phil needed to be home and focus on his family. For a while, the golf world accepted that. People assumed someone in the Mickelson household was sick, and Phil was being a good husband and father. That private family health matter was never fully explained. No details were given about who was sick. No timeline was provided for his return. Golf writer Alan Shipnuck, who has covered Phil closely, reported that the crisis involved one of his children being ill. But as the months passed without Phil returning to competition, something else became clear. The family wasn't just dealing with a health crisis. They were dealing with something much bigger. And that something didn't start with a hospital visit. It started with a phone call from a lawyer. That call came in June of 2026, and it was about the Farms Golf Club. The Farms is not just any golf course. It sits in Rancho Santa Fe, California, one of the most exclusive communities in the country. It is Phil's home club, his sanctuary, the place where he practiced, hosted friends, and felt comfortable. He had been a member there for years. It was his turf, and they kicked him out. According to reporting from Golf Digest, the Farms Golf Club voted to expel Phil Mickelson after an investigation into an incident that occurred earlier in the year. A female employee had accused him of inappropriate physical contact. The club launched an investigation, talked to witnesses, reviewed the available evidence, and made a decision. Phil was no longer welcome. His lawyer, Tom Clare, called it a shocking and disappointing outcome. He said there was no basis for the allegations and that they would review their legal options. But the damage was already visible. Phil had been publicly branded as a problem, not a legend, a problem. That expulsion sent shockwaves through the Mickelson family. The children saw it happen in real time. They saw their father's reputation crumble. They started asking hard questions about what else was happening, where the money was going, and whether the family fortune was actually safe. If a golf club could turn on Phil Mickelson, what else was coming? And who was going to protect the family when the next shoe dropped? That next shoe landed before anyone had time to process what happened at the Farms. In June 2026, just days after the news broke about his expulsion, another story emerged. It came from Alan Shipnuck again, writing on his Substack, and it involved a woman named Ashley Perez. Ashley is the ex-wife of Pat Perez, a fellow LIV golf player. She had been around the golf world for years. She knew Phil, Amy, and the family. According to Ashley, back in 2015, Phil Mickelson sent her a photograph of himself. Not a family photo, not a golf photo, a photograph of himself entirely naked. She also allegedly said Phil invited her to his hotel room while her then-husband Pat was asleep in another room. She claimed Phil used to pay young employees to hide his phone so Amy could not track his location through the phone's GPS. Now, let's be clear. These are allegations. They came from a single source. Phil's attorney denied them, calling them a character assassination and an ambush by anonymous sources. No public evidence has been produced to support these claims, but allegations don't need to be proven in a court of public opinion to cause damage. They just need to be believed, or repeated enough that people start to wonder. And the timing was brutal. Coming on the heels of his expulsion from the farms, the stories painted a picture of a man who was not just controversial, but reckless. A man who took risks that endangered not only himself, but everyone around him. For the children, this was a moment that changed everything. They had grown up with their father as a hero, a six-time major champion who seemed to have everything. Now they were confronting a very different version of him. They were watching their father become radioactive, and they realized that if they didn't act, the damage might spread to everything he had built. That brings us to the core of this story: the money. Phil Mickelson is worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 million. That is not an exact number. No one knows exactly how much he has except Phil and his accountants, but the estimates are consistent. He has earned over $100 million on the golf course alone, with substantial additional income from endorsements, appearance fees, and LIV golf. He is one of the richest golfers in history. But wealth on that scale is not just a pile of cash sitting in a bank account. It is a complex web of trusts, investments, real estate, and financial instruments. Assets can be spread across multiple entities, designed to protect the money from taxes, lawsuits, and other threats. And that is where the children's legal action comes into play. According to sources familiar with the situation, the three Mickelson children have filed a petition in court. The details remain sealed. The exact nature of the filing is still under wraps, but the intent is clear. They want something that could change the balance of power in the family forever. Why would they do something so drastic? What could justify tearing your own family apart in such a public way? The answer, according to legal experts who have analyzed similar cases, is liability. The children believe Phil is a target. They believe his behavior has exposed the family fortune to legal action. They believe that if they don't act quickly, the money could be drained by lawsuits, settlements, or financial claims. Think about it. Phil has already been connected to a money laundering investigation. He was involved in an insider trading scandal back in 2016. He has a well-documented history of gambling debts that run into the millions. Now he is facing allegations of sexual misconduct that could create further legal exposure. From the children's perspective, every one of those issues is a threat to the family fortune. So they decided to take matters into their own hands. What happens next depends entirely on what the court decides, and the court has not decided yet. But the filing is in. The battle lines are drawn. First, there is the oldest daughter. She was born in June of 1999. She is 27 years old now. She grew up watching her father win majors. She saw him win the Masters in 2004, the PGA Championship in 2005, the Open Championship at Muirfield in 2013, and the Masters again in 2021, when he became the oldest major champion in golf history. She has been the most visible of the three. In July 2026, just weeks after the Ashley Perez allegations came out, she was seen with Amy at a Trader Joe's in California. They were shopping together and hugging. They looked close, like a mother and daughter united in the face of a shared crisis. According to people close to the family, she is the driving force behind the legal action. She is the one who called the lawyers and convinced her siblings that they needed to act. She is willing to stand in a courtroom and argue that her father cannot be trusted with the family's money. That is the foundation of this entire family war. The youngest child is the only son. He was born in March of 2003. He is 23 years old, and his story, in many ways, is the most tragic. Phil has often talked about that experience. He has credited Amy's survival and his son's recovery as a miracle. He has described the fear, uncertainty, and desperate prayers. He has used that story to show how much he loves his family. And yet, here we are. Phil's only son, the child who almost didn't survive, is now in court, asking a judge to take control of his father's money. He is the heir, the only son. He grew up idolizing his father and watching him win major after major. He saw the fans, the respect of his peers, and the admiration of the golf world. And now he is saying in public documents that his father cannot be trusted with the family's finances, that his father is a danger to the family fortune. that his father needs to be supervised, controlled, and limited. He is doing this because he believes it is the only way to protect his family, his mother, and his sisters. He is willing to risk his relationship with his father to do it. That is how bad things have gotten in the Mickelson household. 3 children, 3 distinct personalities, 3 different reasons for being in this fight, but one common goal: protect the family fortune, even if it means damaging the family to do it. Now, let's talk about the mechanism. How does this actually work, and what does it mean for Phil? The legal strategy is sophisticated. It is a petition. The details remain sealed, but the general approach is consistent with similar cases in high-net-worth families. A trust is a legal structure that holds assets on behalf of beneficiaries. In Phil's case, the trust could contain a significant portion of his wealth, real estate, investments, businesses, and money intended to support the family. The trustees are the people who make decisions about that money. They decide how to invest it, distribute it, and protect it from taxes, lawsuits, and other threats. The children are asking the court to remove Phil from that position and appoint them as new trustees, giving them legal authority to manage the family's wealth without Phil's involvement. This is not necessarily a request to take the money away from Phil entirely. It is a request to put the assets behind legal protections that could limit his access and spending while protecting them from creditors. In legal terms, this can involve a mechanism called a spendthrift clause. A spendthrift clause is a provision in a trust designed to restrict a beneficiary's ability to use trust assets to satisfy certain debts. The children are essentially arguing that Phil's gambling, legal troubles, and risky behavior threaten the trust. They are asking the court to activate protective measures already built into the trust structure and put them in control. That is the legal battlefield, and the outcome is far from certain. There is a cruel irony at the heart of this strategy, and it goes back to Phil's history with the law. In 2016, Phil was caught up in an insider trading scandal. The Federal Bureau of Investigation looked into his financial dealings. He was accused of trading stocks based on confidential information provided by a gambler. He eventually agreed to pay back the profits he made. In 2026, just weeks before the children filed their petition, reports surfaced connecting Phil to a gambling money laundering operation. A former bookmaker facing prison had received a wire transfer of approximately $275,000 from Phil. The bookmaker was involved in illegal sports betting, and that is exactly what the children are worried about. They fear Phil's associations, gambling debts, and legal troubles could come crashing down on the family fortune. Creditors, lawsuits, and government penalties could potentially drain the trust, so they are taking preemptive action. They are locking the fortress before the siege begins. They are making sure the money is protected even if everything else falls apart. That is the hidden mechanism behind this story. The children may not be acting out of spite. They may be acting out of fear. The fear that their father could destroy everything he built and the legacy he leaves behind. And when you understand that fear, you start to understand why they are willing to do something so drastic. But the final question remains: what happens when the judge makes a decision? Now, let's address Amy. Where is the wife who stood by Phil through his scandals? Where is the woman who nearly died giving birth to his son? The reports are limited, but they are telling. In July of 2026, just weeks after the court documents were filed, Amy was spotted in public with her oldest daughter. They were hugging and shopping together. There have also been reports that Amy was not wearing her wedding ring. That is not confirmed by multiple sources. But if the reports are accurate, it could suggest that she is separated from Phil, at least emotionally, if not physically. If Amy has chosen to support her children, that changes everything. Phil's children have turned on him. His wife may have turned on him. His own club has expelled him. That is the real tragedy of this story. Not the money, not the court case, the family. But the final chapter has not been written yet. So where does this leave us? The court case is ongoing. The documents are sealed, but the rumors are flying. Phil's lawyers are likely fighting the petition, arguing that his children are overstepping and have no right to take control of his wealth. The children's lawyers are likely arguing that Phil is a liability and that action is necessary to protect the family fortune. No one knows exactly how this will end. Cases like this are often settled out of court. Privacy is a powerful motivator, especially when a family has this much at stake. But even if the case settles, the damage is done. The children have already made their statement. They have drawn a line. They have told the world that they do not trust their father. The relationship between Phil and his children may never be the same. Even if they reconcile publicly, the memories of this legal battle and the sense of betrayal could remain, and Phil will have to live with the knowledge that his own children believed he was a threat, that they felt they needed to protect the family from him. That is the ultimate irony of this story. Phil Mickelson spent his career chasing money. He defected to live golf for the money. He took risks for the money. He gambled for the money. And now, according to this story, that same fortune has become the center of a battle with his own children. He may have won the financial battle, but he could lose the war for his family, his legacy, and the respect of the people who matter most. The final chapter has not been written. The court case is ongoing. The outcome is uncertain. But one thing is clear: the Mickelson family may never be the same, and the scars of this battle could last a lifetime.